So that video I posted yesterday, there were a couple of comments where people accused me of fear-mongering and saying that I was sort of perpetuating this idea that Ofsted cause all of these issues in schools. Was that video yesterday passionate? Yes. Was it full on? And I make no apologies for that because I'm so incredibly frustrated with what has been announced. Let's just give you a bit of background here. I've been through a few Ofsteds, and the Ofsteds I've been through were very, very different to what I get sent from school staff who go through the most horrific experiences because of this inconsistent system. When I first discussed what happened to Ruth Perry, the number of messages I got from other leaders in school who said they had similar thoughts off the back of one of these dreadful Ofsted inspections. Now, with these I'm not going to call them reforms, with this rebranding from Ofsted, I'm really, really disappointed. I'm not surprised, but I really am disappointed. Because we've had the coroner's inquest into Ruth Perry's death, which found that Ofsted inspection directly contributed to her death. Ofsted's own independent review found a lot of issues. Ofsted have then done their own independent wellbeing review of these current changes, and it's come out that it's going to have a negative impact on teachers, leaders' mental health. It's not going to improve things, and yet Ofsted are just head in the sand, not willing to change. Because as an institution, they are not bothered about schools or teachers or the profession. The only thing they're bothered about is Ofsted. And that's something I've been saying for years. It's all just about justifying their own existence. If that comes to the detriment of our workload, they do not care. Even though they'll come into school and they'll ask the questions, they'll tick their own boxes, they do not care. And that is what is so frustrating. And it's clear I'm not the only one who thinks this. 9 in 10 oppose Ofsted changes in a Heads Union poll. So yeah, 91% responding to the Snap Union survey say they oppose what Ofsted are planning on doing. And then 62% of nearly 1,400 respondents say they oppose these plans strongly, which interestingly is more than the data set Ofsted actually used of parents who they report are overwhelmingly supportive of this new system. And these comments from the General Secretary of the NAHT, Paul Whiteman, just exactly back up my thoughts here in that they are just not willing to listen or engage. I think the thing that is so frustrating for me is that we all know there is a better system there that can be so much more supportive for schools and staff. But it just goes to show that Ofsted just aren't willing to admit that they are wrong or they could ever be at fault, and which is why nothing is really changing. Now, I am going to be really interested to see what happens if this goes ahead, where a heads union is going to poll their members on whether to withdraw as Ofsted inspectors. Because ultimately, the majority of Ofsted inspectors are also working in leadership in schools. And I completely understand why leaders do it. I think a lot of leaders go into it with the right idea. They want to help and they want to, make a difference. And a lot of them will say, I'm going to change it from the inside. You can't. But I also understand a lot of school leaders will do it because they get inside information. They get a step ahead of others to then be able to play the game and get the best outcomes from Ofsted. And I've said for ages, I'd love to do a Freedom of Information Act to look at schools whose leaders are inspectors and the outcomes of their inspections, because I think you'd see a correlation. That has been one of my criticisms of Ofsted over the years, is that any training, anything that inspectors get should be freely available to absolutely everyone. There should be none of this, documents only available for these people. And you remember this a couple of years ago with those leaked crib sheets and all the nonsense with that. So Ofsted should be completely transparent with all of their training materials now. Nothing should be hidden. That would be a step in the right direction. It does make me think, if I was an inspector who also works as a leader in school, could I carry on doing it given what Ofsted have announced? Because look, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I could work for a regulation body that has been found to have contributed to the death of a colleague. That's me personally. Maybe you think, well, actually, if they learn the lessons, if they actually reform themselves, maybe I can carry on doing it. But to read what Ofsted have announced where they've not learned those lessons, and it is going to continue to have, from everything I'm seeing, a negative impact on the well-being of staff, the mental health of leaders, the workload of teachers. Could I still carry on doing that job, thinking that I'm having a positive impact? I don't know. That's just me. I could be wrong. It'd be really interesting, because if this does go ahead and you find that a lot of these leaders who are Ofsted inspectors are of the same mind as the 9 out of 10 head teachers who are saying they don't like what Ofsted are doing, this could be the real first significant step in saying, no, we're not having it anymore. Because listen, if Ofsted haven't got the inspectors to inspect, they're not going to be able to roll out these, no, it's not reforms, is it? Rebranding. So we shall see. And what make it clear, I would love nothing more than in a year to turn around and say, listen guys, I got this completely wrong. Actually, what Ofsted have done is they really have learnt, and the messages I get from staff are always positive now, whether the outcomes are what they are, but it's a positive experience, it's supportive. But I doubt that's going to happen.